As the old saying goes, when fortunes fade, so do friends, and when the party ends, only emptiness remains. How many luminaries of yesteryear once held court with wine and laughter, only to find themselves utterly alone when the curtain falls. Picture, if you will, the grand estate of Minister Shen in the capital, where dwelt a young lady of impeccable breeding named Shen Shuyan, a veritable jewel of society, yet destined to face abandonment on what should have been her most triumphant day. From wedding hall betrayal to the final reckoning of accounts, how shall this saga of love, loss, and retribution unfold, settle? And dear listeners, as I regale you with every delicious detail, as the old saying goes, when fortunes fade, so do friends, and when the party ends, only emptiness remains. How many luminaries of yesteryear once held court with wine and laughter, only to find themselves utterly alone when the curtain falls. Picture, if you will, the grand estate of Minister Shen in the capital, where dwelt a young lady of impeccable breeding named Shen Shuyan, a veritable jewel of society, yet destined to face abandonment on what should have been her most triumphant day. From wedding hall betrayal to the final reckoning of accounts, how shall this saga of love, loss, and retribution unfold? Settle in, dear listeners, as I regale you with every delicious detail. The red candles have burned away to mere stubs, their crimson tears pooling like congealed blood on the gilded tray beneath, a melancholy little mountain of sorrow. Above my head, this phoenix crown of pure gold weighs like a millstone, pressing into my neck until it aches. Yet I dare not show the slightest sign of weakness. The wedding hall, which should have been alive with the music of strings and flutes, has fallen into a suffocating silence. No, not merely silence, but something worse. The air itself seems to ripple with barely concealed schadenfreude. The deliberately hushed whispers of guests wash over me like tide against my eardrums, each word a needle finding its mark. 3 full hours now, and still no sign of General Xiao. For the sake of some foreign woman, he dares to leave an imperial sanctioned marriage hanging in the breeze. The tutor's mansion has had its dignity stripped away and trampled underfoot. Such a pity about that 10-li bridal procession. All that scarlet splendor winding halfway around the capital, and now it has become the evening's greatest jest. I stand like a clay figure, rooted to the spot. My limbs have long since gone numb beneath these heavy scarlet robes, yet my hearing has grown preternaturally sharp, greedily and masochistically capturing every humiliating syllable. Today was meant to be the glorious day when Xiao Huai and I would pledge our eternal bond. Yet, just as the ceremonial words, "First bow to heaven and earth," were about to be spoken, a servant came tumbling through the entrance like a rolling stone, shattering the festive atmosphere to smithereens. "Master, terrible news. The young lady Miss Liu has fallen into Qingshin Lake behind the manor." In that instant, I felt the man beside me stop breathing entirely. He didn't even turn to look at me, didn't leave me so much as a word of explanation. His scarlet robes billowing like a decisive blade, Xiao Huai's figure vanished swift as wind, taking with him my dignity and the Shen family's reputation, sweeping everything into that bottomless vortex. Lu Yunwei, that cousin, lodging at the general's mansion, forever draped in mourning white, walking as delicately as willow swaying in the breeze. She claimed her fate was cursed, that she couldn't bear sunlight or wind, that even speaking a few words left her breathless. But just before Xiao Huai departed, through the swaying gaps in my wedding veil, I caught sight of her clearly. She stood in the most inconspicuous shadow among the crowd, and across the boiling sea of voices, she cast me a single glance. Where was the frailty of silken thread in that gaze? It was pure ice laced with poison, carrying the high-handed provocation of a victor. Then she turned toward the rear gardens. Moments later came news of the drowning. This was a trap, crude yet effective. At this point, Xiao Huai's mother, my mother-in-law, to be finally lost her composure. She approached my side, her tone devoid of apology, instead dripping with righteous cruelty. Shuyan, since you are a daughter raised by the Shen family, you should understand propriety. Yunwei has such a delicate constitution, and she suffered this mishap while celebrating your wedding. Huai rushing to save her was only natural urgency, standing there like a wooden post for all to see. Who exactly are you performing for? You are only giving everyone more to laugh about. My throat felt as though someone had stuffed burning coals down it, searing me with pain. Understand propriety? My husband abandons me like refuse on our wedding day to rescue another woman with ulterior motives. And I am supposed to smile and say he did right. Why haven't you removed that veil yourself? Are you waiting for Huai to return and attend to you personally? Seeing my stillness, the old madam's words grew increasingly acid. Stop putting on your precious daughter of the tutor heirs. Once you've entered the Xiao family gates, you'll follow Xiao family rules. I, Shen Shuyan, had spent 18 years learning rules, 18 years observing proprieties, only to have this so-called in-law family grind me into the mud before all these guests. Hidden in my sleeves, my fingernails pressed deep into my palms. Drawing blood, I cannot fall. I am Shen Jing's daughter, the backbone of the Shen family. And I will not break before this hall full of spectators. The red candles guttered toward their end, their flames sputtering in final rebellion. Half the guests had already departed, leaving only the vultures hoping to see how this farce would conclude. Madame Xiao had long since retreated to the inner chambers, claiming a sudden headache, but not before delivering a parting shot of utterly senseless that landed like a slap across my face. The vast wedding hall stood cavernously empty, with only those piles of red lacquered chests bearing garish double happiness characters silently, mocking my wretchedness. Those were the dowry items Mother had painstakingly assembled for me before her death. She said that with such magnificent wealth at my side, her Ayan would stand tall in her husband's household. But now this backbone was buckling beneath me. Just as my legs were giving way and darkness clouded my vision, the sound of measured, synchronized footsteps echoed from the entrance. Steady, powerful each step, seeming to strike directly upon the heart. This wasn't Xiao Huai. That faithless wretch lacked such bearing. The crowd parted like water before the incoming tide. Against the light, a crimson figure crossed the threshold. It was the court robe of a first-rank minister, the crane emblem on the chest glittering in the candlelight. It was my father, Grand Tutor Shen Jing, currently serving the throne. His expression was serene. Every hair perfectly in place, those hands that could shift winds and clouds in the imperial court clasped behind his back. He looked neither at the guests with their varied expressions, nor at the cold remnants scattered across the floor, nor at the groom's empty seat at the head table. His gaze cut through all the absurdity in this hall and landed directly upon me. In that moment, all my grievances broke like a dam bursting, no longer containable. He came to a stop before me. The entire hall held its breath, every soul speculating how this all-powerful tutor would respond. Would he rage at his daughter's incompetence? Or would he swallow his pride and maintain face with empty pleasantries? Father said nothing at all. He simply raised his hand with infinite gentleness and lifted the red veil that had weighed upon my head like a 1,000-pound burden. When our eyes met, I saw the overwhelming heartbreak in the depths of his gaze. Child, his voice was slightly hoarse, yet carried unquestionable authority. Come home with father. Those 5 words alone shattered all my composure. Tears fell in broken strings, and I bit my lip hard to keep from sobbing aloud. Father didn't linger on my tearful face. He turned and issued his second command to the Shen family guards he'd brought. His tone remained measured, yet each word rang like iron throughout the wedding hall. Take my daughter's dowry, every single piece, back home. Yes, sir. The guard's thunderous response shook dust from the ceiling beams. They moved with crisp efficiency, hoisting those chests bearing happiness symbols and marching toward the exit without a backward glance. The guests were utterly dumbfounded. This wasn't simply retrieving a daughter. This was a public divorce. The 10-Li bridal procession, returning by the same route. This was more brutally decisive than a public slap to the Xiao family's face. This was announcing to the world that the Shen family wanted nothing more to do with this match. Following Father's wake, I walked step by step out of this cage, like General's mansion. The evening breeze dried the tears from my cheeks and scattered the last wisps of my romantic illusions about Xiao Huai. That snaking line of scarlet dowry chests carved itself like a shocking wound across the capital's twilight. When we returned to the tutor's mansion, night had already fallen deep. To avoid unwanted attention, the household had not lit the lanterns. Father dismissed all servants and personally escorted me back to my chambers. The room remained unchanged, my unfinished copy of the Fei Calm Heart Sutra. Fei still lay spread across the writing desk, as if that absurd wedding had been nothing but a dream. Father handed me a cup of hot tea, watching as I cradled it in my palms before speaking slowly. You need not blame yourself for today's events. The fault was not yours. I stared down at the tea leaves floating in the amber liquid, smiling bitterly. Father, I know I did nothing wrong, but after tonight, your daughter will be the laughingstock of the entire capital. Laughingstock. Father's cold snort carried a glint in his eyes I'd never seen before. My daughter, even if she never marries, is hardly fodder for gossip. Anyone who dares to laugh will find themselves crying for the rest of their lives. These domineering words were exactly what my heart needed to hear, but I understood the broader implications. The Xiao family controls the northern border forces. After such a decisive break, might we not? Military authority? Father cut me off, his mouth curving in mockery. That authority belongs to His Majesty, not the Xiao family. If he could abandon you during his own wedding for the sake of a woman, betraying his word so completely, tomorrow he might abandon the realm itself for personal sentiment. Would His Majesty dare trust such a man? I looked up sharply, meeting Father's penetrating gaze. So this wasn't merely a broken engagement. It was a calculated political maneuver that night. I removed my wedding attire and washed away all cosmetics. Though I didn't sleep, my heart felt more settled than it had in months. The next morning brought news flying in on wings. Miss! My personal maid, Xiao Tao, burst in like a whirlwind, her face bright with vindictive satisfaction. Word is that when General Xiao returned last night to find the bridal chamber empty and all the dowry gone, he was completely bewildered. Later, the old general flew into a towering rage and ordered him 30 military lashes, skin split open and everything. Now he is kneeling at our front gates. Been there all night, they say, knees practically worn to bone. My hand paused in its combing as I regarded my pale reflection in the mirror, my eyes rippling with nothing but indifference. Kneeling all night. He should have thought of this earlier. Did he imagine that a night of injury and genuflection would soften my heart? That it could erase the humiliation I endured during those 3 endless hours? He underestimated the Shen family and failed to understand me entirely. All morning, the tutor's mansion gates remained firmly barred. Father attended court and conducted business as usual, treating the swaying figure outside with complete disregard. Around midday, the steward hurried in to report that palace messengers had arrived. His Majesty was summoning both Father and Xiao Huai to court. Father set down his vermilion brush and rose with perfect composure. At the doorway he paused briefly and instructed the steward, "Go deliver a message to that person outside." The steward bowed deeply. "Please speak, master." Father stood with hands clasped behind him, his gaze seeming to penetrate the high walls and see the man groveling in the dust. "Tell him want to marry my daughter in your next life, perhaps." The palace carriages rumbled forth, crushing the street's tranquility beneath their wheels. Father didn't bring me to court. He said that daughters of the Shen family, when wronged, need only wait graciously for apologies. No need to be scrutinized by all and sundry in the Golden Hall. But he carried with him those words more decisive than any imperial edict. I learned what happened afterwards from Father upon his return. In the imperial study, the atmosphere was cold as ice. His Majesty sat high upon the dragon throne, looking down at two kneeling figures, one his trusted minister, the other his sharp-edged spear. Xiao Huai pressed his forehead to the ground, his voice hoarse with heavy remorse. "Your Majesty," this subject was momentarily confused, failing both Shuyan and Grand Tutor's generous regard. "I willingly accept any punishment, only begging your Majesty and the Grand Tutor for one more chance." His posture was humble, his words earnest, attempting to frame this scandal as youthful folly. However, my father, Shen Jing, didn't spare him even a proper glance. His Majesty rubbed his temples and first delivered a stern lecture to Xiao Huai, then shifted toward diplomatic mediation. "My dear Shen, I understand your protective feelings toward your daughter, but Xiao Huai has distinguished military service, and the northern border's peace depends upon him. When young people err, instruction suffices. If our two families become bitter enemies over this, it hardly serves the realm's interests. Imperial statecraft prioritizes balance above all. Anyone else would have seized this opportunity to gracefully retreat with imperial favor. But my father was not anyone else." He slowly raised his head, meeting the emperor's gaze directly, his spine straight as a sword. "Your Majesty, in raising my daughter, I emphasized propriety first, faithfulness second. I believe Xiao Huai to be a worthy man for entrustment. Facts have proven this man treats promises as child's play." Father's voice wasn't loud yet. Every word pierced the heart like thunder in the imperial study. "Your Majesty counsels magnanimity for the sake of the realm. I dare ask a man who could abandon his wedded wife at the altar for personal desire. Does your Majesty truly believe he could honor his oath to his sovereign? If he could discard his bride today for private sentiment, might he not abandon this fair kingdom tomorrow for greater temptation?" When these words finished, the entire room fell deathly silent. Xiao Huai jerked his head up, face pale as parchment, trembling yet unable to utter a single word of rebuttal. Because this was a heart-piercing analysis, an unsolvable trap. His Majesty's expression immediately darkened, his gaze resting on Xiao Huai for a long while, growing deep and inscrutable. After what felt like eternity, the emperor wearily waved his hand. "Grand Tutor speaks wisely, Xiao Huai. You are dismissed. Confine yourself for reflection. This marriage I shall meddle no further." Xiao Huai was dragged out in a daze of lost hopes. That evening, Father returned to the mansion and looked at me with gentle eyes. "Shuyan, today I cut off Xiao Huai's retreat in the imperial presence, eliminating any possibility of your return. Do you resent Father for this?" I poured him hot tea, speaking softly. "Father, you did right. Since that path led to a dead end, better to tear down the wall entirely. Your daughter won't walk it again for the rest of my days. I wish only to serve at your knee and share your burdens." Since that palace confrontation, the broken engagement became forbidden territory in the capital's conversations. Xiao Huai was confined by the old general, the mansion gates sealed tight, and I returned to my former peaceful life, daily helping father organize documents and attending his studies. Surface calm concealed turbulent undercurrents. Half a month later, Xiao Tao returned from outside in a fury, her face thunderous. Miss, the gossip out there grows nastier by the day. It must be that general's mansion spreading poison. I was checking accounts with my vermilion brush, not lifting my head at her words. Tell me, what tale are they spinning now? That I am jealous and intolerant, or that I abuse my family's power to bully others? Xiao Tao's eyes widened. Miss, you knew already? I chuckled softly, setting down my brush. The smile didn't reach my eyes. Old Madame Xiao protects her own above all else. After swallowing such bitter medicine, how could she let it pass quietly? And what of Lu Yunwei? Don't mention that white lotus. Xiao Tao stamped her foot in rage. Word is the old madam not only moved her into the main courtyard, but publicly declared her adopted daughter, claiming to pity her orphan state. Now everyone's saying, you humiliated Miss Liu on your wedding day until she tried drowning herself, and General Xiao only left the ceremony to save a life. People are calling our tutor's mansion overly harsh. What masterful reversal of black and white. What brilliant strategy of removing fuel from under the cauldron. Adopted daughter. This was a declaration of war against me while paving Lu Yunwei's road to legitimate entry. Miss, we can't just endure this. Naturally not. I rose and walked to the window, gazing at the plane tree in the courtyard that had found new life after Winter's death. Since they wish to perform, I'll help them build a stage. I turned to face Xiao Tao. Go to the storehouse and retrieve that 12 flower goddesses white porcelain tea set. Xiao Tao started in shock, but that is your late mother's memorial treasure. Priceless beyond measure. What do you intend? Sell it. My tone was casual, as if discussing something utterly trivial. Sell it? Dead objects, however precious, cannot compare to a living person's reputation. A calculating glint flashed in my eyes. Send out invitations. I am hosting a treasure appreciation gathering, inviting all the capital's noble ladies. Announce that, to return the betrothal gifts, the tutor's mansion faces financial strain, and Miss Shen must regrettably sell her mother's mementos to make ends meet. Xiao Tao was clever enough to grasp the implications immediately. Her face brightening with delight. Miss is going to play the victim? Not merely that. My smile turned cold. Lu Yunwei adores white porcelain, doesn't she? And Xiao Huai would do anything for her sake, wouldn't he? I want to see, when this tea set she dreams of appears at auction, will she pretend noble disinterest, or will she manipulate Xiao Huai into buying it? If he purchases it, that proves their secret affair, using his former fiancée's mother's treasures to please his new beloved. Let's see if Xiao Huai's spine can remain straight after that. This move would force them to spit out everything they'd swallowed, bones and all. In the general's mansion's main hall, the silence was bone. Deep, the air seemingly solidified into substance, pressing down until breathing became difficult. This was no longer a home but a battlefield before the storm. Old General Xiao Zhen sat in his military uniform, emanating the killing aura of long campaign seasons. Kneeling before him was the son he now wished he could slay with one blow. Xiao Huai, though Huai had changed into civilian clothes, they couldn't conceal his defeated wreckage. Beast. With a thunderous roar, a blue and white teacup crashed beside Xiao Huai's knees, exploding into fragments, while scalding tea and porcelain shards scattered everywhere. I confined you for reflection, and your brain is stuffed with what, paste or straw? Xiao Huai's spine trembled, his head nearly touching the ground, voice sand, rough. Father, please calm yourself. Your son knows his error. No error absurd. If you truly knew error, you wouldn't remain so obsessed. Xiao Zhen's chest heaved violently, his trembling finger pointing at his son's nose. You think I am angry you saved someone. Wrong, dead wrong. I am furious at your stupidity, at your inability to distinguish priorities. At that wedding watched by court and kingdom, you abandoned your bride before all. You didn't just slap Shen Jing's face, but ground our family's centuries of loyalty into the dirt. The old general had battlefield-sharp perception. He understood court intrigue's treacherous nature. Xiao Huai's impulse had handed the civilian faction a perfect weapon. Shen Jing's tearful imperial testimony struck directly at the military caste's deadliest weakness, the accusation of ignoring propriety while wielding autonomous power. His Majesty hasn't stripped your military rank outright only from respect for our ancestors' service, leaving you final shreds of dignity. Xiao Zhen's voice grew colder with each word. Yet you and your muddle-headed mother staged this household drama. Just then, a trembling, breath-catching voice interrupted the tension. Uncle, please don't blame Huai brother anymore. Everything is Yunwei's cursed fate. Lu Yunwei entered supported by Madame Xiao, swaying like willow in wind. Her face was paper. White, her eyes rimmed with tragic red, gasping with every step as if she might expire momentarily. Seeing her son kneeling among porcelain fragments, Madame Xiao's heart ached to breaking. She shielded Xiao Huai protectively, turning on her husband like a defending hen. Master, what madness is this? Huai already bears wounds, and you still torment him. Saving a life creates 7 levels of merit. Should he have watched Yunwei die? That Shen Shuyan is the truly malicious one. Narrow-hearted wretch, making such fuss over waiting a moment, even dragging her father to court to make our son suffer. Ignorant woman, Xiao Zhen's vision darkened with rage. Long hair, short wit. You understand nothing of court politics. I may not understand. I only know Yunwei is gentle and caring, 1,000 times better than that power, abusing Shen Shuyan. Madame Xiao jutted her chin defiantly. Huai mother states clearly that vicious harpy is well rid of. Once this storm passes, Mother will arrange for you to properly marry Yunwei. Mother, please say no more. Xiao Huai's head snapped up, face iron gray, eyes full of pain and struggle. Lu Yunwei caught these words, and a flash of triumph flickered in her gaze before dissolving into deeper sorrow. She collapsed to her knees, tears falling like broken pearls. Uncle, Auntie, please don't quarrel over Yunwei anymore. Yunwei was born a disaster star, only bringing harm to others. Why, brother, hurry and reconcile with Sister Shuyan. As long as you two can mend what is broken. Yunwei will leave the capital immediately, spending the rest of her days with Buddhist lamps and prayers. Her words trailed into violent coughing, as if she might expel her very organs. This retreat, as advanced tactic, was lethal poison to Xiao Huai. Seeing this fragile woman sacrificing herself for his sake, Xiao Huai's remaining rationality crumbled instantly. He rushed to embrace her, eyes full of anguish. Yunwei, don't speak nonsense. With your delicate health, where could you go if you left the mansion? This mess is my mishandling. What does it have to do with you? While comforting her, he faced his pressing mother and furious father, feeling crushed between 2 mountains, utterly exhausted. He knew he'd wronged Shen Shuyan, yet seeing Lu Yunwei's fragile state, he couldn't speak the necessary cruel words. Old General Xiao Zhen watched this pathetic farce coldly, feeling metallic sweetness rise in his throat. He finally saw clearly. This son was utterly ruined by this woman. Enough, enough. Xiao Zhen collapsed back into his chair, wearily closing his eyes, unable to bear looking further. Clean up your own mess. But I am telling you now, Shen Jing is no soft persimmon, and his daughter is no pushover. Today's evil seeds will bear tomorrow's bitter fruit, and you'll swallow them through tears of blood. With these words, the old general departed in frigid dignity, leaving behind nothing but absurdity. Madame Xiao rolled her eyes at her husband's retreating figure, then turned to clasp Lu Yunwei's hands tenderly. Good child, don't fear, Auntie will protect you. That Shen Shuyan's current bluster is mere pretense, a discarded woman. Let's see how she maintains any standing in the capital. News of the tutor's mansion's upcoming treasure appreciation gathering struck the capital's noble ladies' circle like a boulder into still water, creating endless ripples. The invitations were supremely elegant, pale blue gilt, flecked paper with exquisite small script reading, simply, appreciate treasures and sip tea. Old objects seeking new fate. At the bottom, Shen Shuyan appeared in aloof, clear characters. These invitations weren't universal, only sent to households of second-rank officials or higher and select established merchant families. Receiving this paper meant more than attending an event. It represented social position. Soon the capital streets buzzed with rumors. Did you hear? The tutor's mansion daughter is selling her dowry. That is nothing. Word is she is even pawning her late mother's memorial pieces for cash. The tutor's mansion holds such status. How could they face such straits? You don't understand. That day's broken engagement, the Grand Tutor fought for dignity by not only returning the dowry, but sending back all the Xiao family's betrothal gifts with interest. Those gifts included numerous estates and shops. Returning them preserved face, but likely cut off their income stream. Truly pitiful. Once heaven's favored daughter, now ruined by that ungrateful Xiao fellow, and the fox fairy Liu, reduced to selling her mother's treasures for daily bread. These gossip fragments flew into my ears like winged creatures. Sitting by my window, listening to servant reports, I smiled with faint mockery. I lifted my vermilion brush and heavily circled the 12 flower goddesses tea set at the top of the sale catalog. This fire of public opinion was my own kindling. Now wind-fed flames burned bright. I wanted this universally known misery. Only by lowering myself into the dust could the arrows aimed at the general's mansion grow sharper and more venomous. Naturally, these flames reached the general's mansion too. The news came via Madame Xiao's niece, who hadn't received an invitation but heard everything secondhand at another house, before returning to embellish her tale. Aunt, you should hear the awful talk outside. They say Shen Shuyan is so spiteful toward you that she has emptied her family coffers. Now so poor she can't afford rice, even selling her mother's 12 flower goddesses white porcelain tea set for meal money. Madame Xiao, initially startled, then cackled with malicious glee. I said she was maintaining false face. Without in-laws' support, can her tutor father protect her forever? Now she knows money troubles, serves her right. She continued her tirade, unaware that Liu Yunwei, massaging her legs, trembled upon hearing 12 flower goddesses, her eyes blazing with greedy, fanatic light. That tea set. She'd seen it described in Shen Shuyan's dowry inventory. White as jade, thin as cicada wings. Translucent in sunlight, each cup painted with a flower goddess. A former dynasty master's final work, truly priceless. This was what she dreamed of possessing, not only for its value, but because it had been Shen Shuyan's treasure. Having Xiao Huai personally purchase, it would crush Shen Shuyan's dignity completely. The ultimate victor's trophy all day. Lu Yunwei remained distracted. When Xiao Huai visited that evening, She sat before her dim lamp weeping, her silhouette pitifully fragile. Yunwei, what is wrong? Xiao Huai's voice carried deep exhaustion and concern. These confined days, only Liu Yunwei's presence offered him peace. Liu Yunwei turned with tearful eyes, feigning reluctance. Nothing, nothing. Why, brother? I just heard some street gossip and feel sorry for Sister Shuyan. She paused, carefully observing his expression, before continuing softly. They say Sister Shuyan must sell her mother's treasures, even that white porcelain tea set she treasured so deeply. I remember you saying it was a world unique treasure. Unless she is truly desperate, how could Sister Shuyan bear to part with it? These words struck Xiao Huai's heart like fine needles. How could he not know that tea set? When reviewing dowry lists, he joked that Yunwei, loving white porcelain, would surely envy it. Shen Shuyan had smiled gently, then saying it was mother's keepsake to treasure lifelong. Treasure lifelong, now offered for sale. Xiao Huai's heart clenched as if squeezed by an invisible fist. He understood Shen Shuyan was forcing his hand, performing for his benefit. Liu Yunwei saw his ashen face and knew the moment was right. She tugged his sleeve gently, her voice pleading yet longing. Why, brother, such a peerless treasure shouldn't fall to vulgar merchants. Something so beautiful deserves someone who truly appreciates its value. Not once did she say, I want, yet every word meant, I desire. Xiao Huai looked down at her tear-filled, hopeful eyes, his soul in turmoil. He recognized Shen Shuyan's trap, a snare forcing him to choose again before the entire capital. Going meant humiliation. Not going meant facing Liu Yunwei's tears. After long silence drained of strength, he closed his eyes and nodded wearily. I'll attend the Treasure Appreciation Day. The Treasure Appreciation Gathering was held in the Tutor's Mansion's Western Flower Hall. This space, though smaller than the main hall, adjoined an exquisite Suzhou-style garden, borrowing scenery to create exceptional tranquility. The hall's antique furnishings and burning dragon's blood incense created an atmosphere of scholarly refinement spanning centuries. I deliberately chose white silk robes today, wearing only a white magnolia hairpin with no cosmetics. Yet this enhanced my snow-pale skin and painted brow beauty. I didn't occupy the host's seat, but moved among guests like any ordinary woman, personally serving familiar ladies fresh tea. My demeanor remained calm and even pleasant. Yet the smile appeared to others as brave composure in adversity, heartbreakingly moving. Miss Shen grows ever more composed. Indeed, facing such calamity yet remaining unshaken, I would have hidden from shame long ago. Look how thin she has grown, clothes hanging loose, complexion poor, truly sinful. That General Xiao must be blind. These deliberately lowered discussions reached my ears. Yet my heart remained undisturbed. I walked calmly to the hall's center where rosewood stands displayed today's merchandise. Former dynasty paintings, imperial jade carvings, mother's dowry jewels, any single piece could astound viewers. But all eyes ultimately fixed upon the centerpiece tea set. Upon black velvet, 12 white porcelain cups surrounded a lustrous teapot like stars orbiting the moon. Afternoon sunlight through windows made the porcelain walls nearly transparent, their painted flower goddesses so lifelike they seemed ready to take flight. Heavens! The legendary 12 flower goddesses' cups? Truly divine beauty. Miss Shen actually bears to part with such treasure? I approached the display, fingertips lightly tracing the cool rim, my voice clear as falling jade beads in the silence. My late mother often said beauty lies in circulation. If we can find someone who truly understands and cherishes these pieces, we fulfill their destiny. Today's gathering merely seeks new bonds for these old treasures. This speech preserved elite dignity while confirming the forced sale due to financial strain rumors. The assembled ladies nodded approvingly, their gazes mixing admiration with genuine sympathy. Into this delicate harmony, a guard's announcement shattered the peace, his voice trembling. From the general's mansion, General Xiao has arrived. Instantly, the flower hall froze like someone had pressed pause. Countless gazes shot toward the entrance. There stood Xiao Huai in simple dark robes, his frame still straight yet bearing obvious travel weariness. He came alone, completely out of place among the jeweled luxury and fragrant elegance. His gaze crossed numerous shocked faces to land directly on me. Those eyes held complex emotions, guilt, pain, struggle, even barely conscious pleading. I met his stare without flinching. My heart was still water, rippleless. After brief silence, voices exploded like breaking dams. How dare he come? The sheer audacity. Look at him. Surely he is here begging Miss Shen's forgiveness. Forgiveness, he doesn't deserve it. This is the tutor's mansion. If he causes trouble today, the Grand Tutor might break his legs. Amid the chaos, I stepped forward calmly, stopping 3 paces from him, and performing an impeccable yet distant curtsy. My voice was flat, as if addressing a complete stranger. I hadn't expected General Xiao's honored presence. How may I serve you? Xiao Huai's throat worked violently, words stuck in his chest. I gave him no breathing room, turning to the steward. Visitors are guests. Since he is a guest, we don't turn anyone away. Steward, bring General Xiao a seat and serve tea. This statement stunned everyone. Even loyal Steward Shen frowned with concern. Miss, I raised my hand to stop him, repeating with unquestionable authority, Steward Shen, please. The tutor's mansion opens its doors for business today. We don't refuse customers. Busyness. Customers. These words slapped Xiao Huai's face like twin thunderclaps. His color drained to paper white. Steward Shen looked at my determined expression, glanced at Xiao Huai's deathly pallor, then sighed deeply and had servants bring a simple stool to the furthest, most humiliating corner. Xiao Huai stiffly dragged himself to that shameful position under everyone's stares. He sat there alone like an unwelcome intruder, enduring scornful, pitying, or entertained gazes from all directions. I lowered my eyes, concealing my coldness. I knew this first blade of revenge had struck true. Xiao Huai's entrance momentarily stilled the flowing musical accompaniment. His appearance was like an awkward stone cast into calm waters, creating large ripples, yet failing to disturb me in the slightest. My gaze slid past him without pause, as if he were merely irrelevant decoration, less worthy of notice than corner flower arrangements. I continued moving gracefully through the social gathering, perfectly smiling, while eloquently describing each treasure's history. My every gesture displayed not only noble breeding, but unshakable composure carved into my very bones. This Mount Tai could collapse without changing my expression, starkly contrasting with Xiao Huai's embarrassed marginalization. Everyone present were experts in the capital's power games. They tacitly treated the former young general as invisible, and far from creating awkwardness, they made the atmosphere livelier than ever to match my performance. The moment was perfect time for the main event. I approached the red silk-covered 12 flower goddesses tea set and nodded to maid Xiao Tao, signaling her to unveil the mystery. Xiao Tao, perfectly attuned, carefully lifted the cup painted with winter plum blossoms toward the window light. Instantly, the white porcelain walls seemed to melt into translucent crystal. the branches cold plums and the flower goddesses flowing robes appearing to live within that dancing brilliance. Perfect verse, sparse shadows slant across clear shallow water, hidden fragrance floats in moonlight's yellow dusk. Such transparent porcelain body, truly divine artistry. A titled lady obsessed with antiques couldn't help but applaud in amazement, her eyes full of wonder. I lowered my lashes, hiding a calculating flash, my tone gentle yet clear. My late mother most loved winter plums and treasured this cup especially. She often said women should live like snow plums, unfearing wind and frost, proud-boned and strong, leaving pure fragrance throughout heaven and earth. I spoke with 3 parts reminiscence, 7 parts sorrow. Only fate changes unpredictably. Now, for survival's sake, I must painfully part with this treasure and find it new worthy guardians. I breathed deeply, surveying the entire hall. This set, 12 cups, 1 pot perfectly unified, will not be separated. Starting price, 5,000 taels of silver. 5,000 taels. This announcement created instant silence in the previously whispering flower hall. This sum equaled a medium merchant's entire wealth. Though the 12 flower goddesses was indeed a rare treasure, such a staggering price would deter 90% of those present. This was precisely my intention. I refused to let it fall to common merchants. I would raise this threshold impossibly high, accessible only to very few, such as imperial relatives, such as wealthy tycoons, such as the recently victorious, richly rewarded general of the realm. After brief silence, all eyes drifted thread, like toward the corner's Xiao Huai. This was no longer simple auction, but carefully designed entrapment. Everyone held their breath, wanting to see whether this general who'd betrayed marriage vows for a beauty would dare once again risk everything to win another smile. Xiao Huai sat rigidly, face liver, colored. His spine was broad, straight, hands clenched on his knees, back veins bulging with inner struggle. Those gazes were no longer respectful, but like poison, tipped knives carving him repeatedly. He knew perfectly well that opening his mouth would brand, favoring concubines over wives and lust, addled onto his forehead permanently, making him the capital's eternal laughingstock. Yet closing his eyes brought Lu Yunwei's tear, stained fragile face and her plaintive plea. Why, brother, I only want this one keepsake. That voice was incantation, trapping him in impossible circumstances. Time stretched endlessly. Just when everyone expected this drama to end in embarrassing failure, the corner figure finally moved. Xiao Huai shakily stood, voice dry as sand, each word costing his life's energy. I bid 6,000 taels. When his words fell, the flower hall was silent enough to hear dust settling. Then came synchronized gasps and barely suppressed exclamations throughout the crowd. He actually bought it. He actually stood before his former fiancé Shen Shuyan and paid an astronomical sum for her dead mother's treasures, planning to gift them to the woman who'd ruined their engagement. I watched him quietly, my polite smile unwavering, yet my eyes were frozen wastelands. General Xiao truly shows magnificent generosity. My voice was crystalline music, eerily sharp in the silence. Since the general shows such sincerity, this 12 flower goddesses set belongs to the general. Xiao Tao quickly packed the tea set into a brocade box and presented it to Xiao Huai. Xiao Huai withdrew a thick stack of banknotes from within his robes, trembling as he passed them over. During the exchange, fingertips inevitably touched. His fingers burned like fire, as if fevered. Mine were ice-cold, without trace warmth. He recoiled as if needle pricked. I accepted the notes without counting, immediately passing them to Steward Shen, then performed a perfect curtsy to Xiao Huai. Many thanks for General Xiao's generous relief of the Shen family's urgent need. This humble woman is deeply grateful for the general's great kindness. I emphasized urgent need heavily, each word piercing the heart. Xiao Huai swayed violently, lips trembling as if to explain, yet under countless watching eyes he couldn't speak a word. He clutched the heavy brocade box like a burning coal, fleeing in panic from the flower hall. As his figure vanished, long suppressed discussion erupted like breaking floodwaters. Mad, absolutely insane, for a mistress, he has abandoned all face. 6,000 taels. That might empty the general's mansion treasury, all to please that Lu Yunwei. After this, Miss Shen and the general's mansion are completely finished. No possibility of reconciliation. Amid this chaos, I walked calmly to the hall's center, taking the banknotes from Steward Shen and raising them high. Ladies and misses, please quiet down. I raised my voice, cutting through the surrounding clamor. 2 days' treasure appreciation gathering earned a total of 9,300 taels. Shuyan hereby swears, the Shen family takes not a single coin of this money. Every penny will go to Mercy Hall for supporting orphans and families of soldiers who died in northern campaigns. These words thundered through the flower hall like lightning. Everyone stared at me in utter disbelief. I stood straight, spined, eyes clear and determined, slowly surveying each shocked face. Our nation's soldiers died protecting hearth and home, returning souls to battlefield sands. We who dwell safely in the rear enjoy peace only because they bear the weight forward. Though Shuyan is but a weak woman, I understand righteous duty and would contribute my small strength to these heroes' aftermath. I walked solemnly to the Mercy Hall official sent by the senior princess, a respected woman, and offered the banknotes with both hands. The official was moved to tears, gripping my hands tightly, her voice trembling. Miss Shen's righteousness, this old woman thanks you for those orphans and widows' sake. In that moment, complete silence, then thunderous applause and praise. All previous pity and sympathy for my family decline and selling possessions instantly transformed into mountain. High admiration. I used Xiao Huai's 6,000 taels to purchase my own reputation throughout the capital, while he used those 6,000 taels to buy himself eternal infamy. This battle was won decisively, mercilessly. When Xiao Huai returned to the general's mansion, night had fallen deep with bone, chilling cold. The exquisite brocade box in his hands felt heavy as 1,000 stones, making each step torturous. Passing servants avoided him like plague. Yet he still caught their fearful, contemptuous, even gleeful glances. Overnight, he'd become the mansion's criminal, the entire capital's greatest joke. Crossing the silent courtyard, he headed directly to Lu Yunwei's listening rain pavilion. Light still glowed within, the yellow candle flame against window paper, becoming his only warmth in this cold night. Pushing open the door, bitter medicine mingled with cloying incense struck him. Lu Yunwei sat at her dressing table, wearing only thin bedclothes, obviously long waiting. Hearing the door, she turned with delighted surprise. When her gaze touched the brocade box in Xiao Huai's hands, her previously dim eyes blazed with stunning brightness, all sickness and sorrow vanishing, replaced by near greedy ecstasy. Huai brother, you are back. You really bought it back. She didn't even bother with shoes, rushing barefoot to embrace his arm, fingertips eagerly reaching for the box. Xiao Huai stood like a puppet, letting her snatch the box away. His body was rigid and cold, his heart deathly numb. Lu Yunwei treasured the box, setting it carefully on the table and opening it with held breath. When the flowing, lustrous 12 flower goddesses appeared complete before her eyes, she released a supremely satisfied sigh. So beautiful, even more beautiful than rumored. She caressed the cool, delicate cup walls with obsessed eyes, voice dreamy. Huai brother, thank you. I knew only you treat me best in this world. Only you truly cherish me. She looked up, that delicate face wearing a victor's smile, expecting the usual embrace and tenderness. However, what met her gaze was a death-pale face written with exhaustion and emptiness. Why, brother, what is wrong? You look terrible. Liu Yunwei's smile stiffened, her tone carrying barely detectable displeasure. Did that Shen Shuyan give you trouble again? Xiao Huai stared at her fixedly, seeing the naked possessiveness in her eyes, seeing her obsession with the tea set exceed her concern for him. The woman in memory who was pure, untainted, kind and gentle, had become utterly strange, even repulsive. He spoke slowly, voice sand, rough as if ground by abrasives, recounting everything that happened at the treasure appreciation gathering, word by word. From his agonized endurance under crowd contempt, to his despair when calling out 6,000 taels, to finally how Shen Shuyan had publicly announced before all the capital's elite that she would donate this blood, price wealth, along with other funds, entirely to support fallen soldiers' families. As he spoke, Liu Yunwei's joy gradually faded, replaced by bewilderment, shock, then uncontrollable rage. When Xiao Huai finished, she slammed the cup down hard with a sharp crack, startling in the silent night. How dare she? How dare she do this? Liu Yunwei's voice was shrill and piercing, her gentle pretense instantly shredding. She is humiliating me, taking money you spent on my gift to win favor and gain reputation, making fools of us both. Why, brother, how could you let her trample us like this? You should have stopped her then. Xiao Huai stared incredulously at this hysterical woman. He'd hoped returning here might bring even slight comfort, even one you suffered. But he received only accusations and resentment. With what right should I stop her? Xiao Huai suddenly exploded, his roar filled with endless desolation. The items were hers. How she spends the money is her freedom. Don't you think I endured enough humiliation today? I was played like a fool in her palm, became the entire capital's laughingstock. And you only care about this tea set, only about your petty face. This was the first time he'd spoken so harshly to Liu Yunwei since they'd known each other. Liu Yunwei was clearly terrified, never having seen Xiao Huai so out of control. Grievance and fear flooded her heart, tears instantly falling like broken pearls. I didn't mean that. I just feel wronged for you, feel unwilling for us, she cried while beating his chest. I've endured so much injustice for you, carried so much blame. I just wanted one gift from you to prove your love. Is that wrong? It is that Shen Shuyan who is too vicious. She can't bear seeing us happy. Hearing this black and white reversal of blame, the last bit of warmth in Xiao Huai's heart completely froze to ash. He suddenly felt very tired, a bone-deep exhaustion, leaving him without strength to argue. He looked at this tearful woman before him, yet his mind involuntarily conjured the composed, determined Shen Shuyan from the flower hall. Won't use tears and weakness to weave cages, dragging him into mire and disgrace. The other used his stupidity to pave her own road to success, winning universal acclaim. What had he been thinking to force himself into this wretched state? Just then, the door was roughly pushed open. Old General Xiao Zhen's trusted steward Xiao Fu stood expressionless at the threshold, his eyes cold as if viewing a stranger. Young master, Xiao Fu's voice held no warmth. The old general wants you in the ancestral hall immediately. He has questions for you. Unlike the general's mansion's gloom and brewing storm, the tutor's mansion's evening was peaceful as paradise. Candlelight filled the study with dancing shadows. Father and I sat opposite each other, engaged in chess. On the board, black and white pieces battled fiercely. My white stones appeared heavily surrounded by black, seemingly doomed. Yet in an inconspicuous corner, I'd left an extremely hidden breathing space, concealing killing intent. Father held a black stone suspended in midair, unable to place it. He studied the board, yet seemed to see through this grid pattern to me myself. You handled the treasure appreciation gathering very well. Finally he spoke, his voice carrying barely detectable satisfaction. Retreating to advance, using borrowed force. Using Xiao Huai's silver to build your own reputation for righteousness. This move removed fuel from under the cauldron, not only making him lose face, but putting the general's mansion at moral disadvantage completely. I gently placed one white stone precisely on that breathing space. Instantly, the entire doomed white formation came alive, transforming into an unsheathed sword that severed the black dragon. Daughter has merely learned father's basics. My tone was calm, rather than passively endure others' pitying sympathy. Better to take initiative. Since Xiao Huai insists on performing rage for beauty's sake, daughter simply provided him a stage to perform to his heart's content. Father looked at my severed chest path, not angry but amused, stroking his beard and nodding. Your mind runs even deeper than I imagined, only donating that huge sum to Mercy Hall for supporting soldiers' orphans. Though brilliant, also puts the Xiao family father and son on the fire to roast. Xiao Zhen holds high prestige in the military. Aren't you afraid this move might draw military criticism? That is hardly daughter's concern. I raised my eyes, gaze calm as water. Since Xiao Huai could abandon national duty and family honor for personal sentiment, he should bear the consequences. Military and popular support never relied solely on past glory. Doesn't father always teach that water can carry or capsize the boat? Father heard this and looked at me deeply. Those eyes held not only approval but complex emotion. Perhaps he'd never expected that the daughter who once knew only poetry and moonlight, sheltered in inner chambers, would grow so quickly after experiencing bone-deep betrayal, becoming so decisively ruthless. You've grown up. He dropped his black stone back into the box, ending the game. Do whatever you wish from now on. As long as father lives, if the sky falls, father will hold it up for you. That night's conversation seemed to forge a new contract between father and me. We were no longer merely father and daughter, but the most steadfast allies in this treacherous situation. The next morning, this understanding faced its most unexpected confirmation. Just after morning court, the palace sent special messengers to the tutor's mansion. Not ordinary eunuchs, but Chief Steward Wang himself, followed by 2 lines of young eunuchs carrying trays covered in bright yellow silk. A grand, imposing ceremony. The entire tutor's mansion erupted. Servants knelt everywhere. Father and I, properly dressed to receive the imperial edict, kneeling in acceptance. Steward Wang unrolled the yellow scroll and proclaimed in his characteristic high voice, "By heaven's mandate, the emperor decrees, Tutor Shen Jing's daughter, Shen Shuyan, is gentle and virtuous in nature, accomplished in propriety. When facing family adversity, she maintained her principles, dispersing private wealth to support the loyal and good. Her heart is commendable, her actions exemplary. I am deeply pleased to honor her virtue. She is hereby enfoffed as Lady Anhe, with a state of 300 households. So decreed." When the edict finished, complete silence fell. Pin drop audible, everyone was stunned by this sudden imperial grace. Lady, this was a genuine title with rank and estate, though the lowest rank outside the imperial family. For an unmarried woman, especially one recently suffering engagement troubles, this was unprecedented honor and favor. This meant that from now on, my identity was no longer merely the tutor's daughter, much less some abandoned woman rejected by the general's mansion, but a formally imperial, and coiffed noblewoman with independent rank. The emperor's move was profound and meaningful. He didn't directly intervene in the general's and tutor's mansion's grievances, but used this enfeoffment edict to clearly indicate his position. He praised my actions. He sided with the Shen family. This was undoubtedly the harshest slap to the general's mansion. The daughter-in-law your general's mansion treated like grass and abandoned like refuse. I personally enfoff as lady. Your callous betrayal only highlights the Shen family's loyalty and righteousness. I raised the heavy edict above my head, respectfully accepting it while kowtowing. Subject's daughter, Shen Shuyan, thanks His Majesty's great grace, long live the Emperor. My voice was steady and calm, betraying no emotion, but I knew this edict was actually earned by Xiao Huai himself. His stupidity and disgrace had step by step pushed me onto this undeserved pedestal. From now on, between him and me lay only the distance between clouds and mud. News of the Shen family daughter's enfeoffment as Lady Anhe seemed to sprout wings, spreading throughout the capital in half a day. Tea-house storytellers caught the scent like cats detecting fish, immediately weaving this into their newest material. Stories like infatuated general betrays beauty, virtuous lady receives imperial favor, and fortune from misfortune. Shen Shuyan, blessed by calamity, worthy model for women proliferated. My reputation reached unprecedented heights. I was no longer a pitiable victim, but a resilient, benevolent, legendary woman personally endorsed by imperial authority. In stark contrast, the general's mansion stood deserted as a bird, abandoned nest, deathly quiet. While the entire capital buzzed about my enfeoffment, another edict quietly entered the general's mansion gates. In the general's mansion's ancestral hall, year-round sandalwood incense felt especially oppressive. Ancestors' tablets stood solemnly in the gloom like cold, watching eyes observing unworthy descendants below. Xiao Huai had knelt on cold, hard floor tiles for an entire night. His knees had long lost feeling. Old back wounds ached in the hall's damp chill. But this physical torment was nothing compared to the anguish and regret ravaging his soul. Old General Xiao Zhen stood hands clasped behind him, watching his son. Overnight, this once battlefield, commanding veteran seemed to age 10 years, his previously grizzled temples now completely white. He neither struck nor scolded, only watched the kneeling figure with eyes deep enough to induce despair. Then Chief Steward Wang arrived with that fate, determining edict, his face no longer showing the spring, like warmth displayed at the tutor's mansion, but cold official indifference. General Xiao Huai received the edict. Both Xiao hearts sank as they knelt to accept the decree. Wang unfolded the edict, his icy voice echoing in the spacious hall, each word like a heavy hammer blow. The emperor decrees, General Xiao Huai, though talented from youth with past meritorious service, has recently behaved erratically, lacking personal virtue, causing family discord and public scandal, truly disappointing our expectations. To warn others effective immediately, his position as Northern Camp Deputy Commander is revoked. Salary suspended for 1 year, confined for reflection 3 months, not to emerge without summons. May he reform and atone, so decreed. Revoked military rank. Confined for reflection. This edict was more cruel and deadly than any military punishment or torture. For one born to military family, military authority was his lifeblood, his foundation for court standing. Now the emperor personally stripped away his proudest possession. Though only deputy commander, the underlying message chilled all. A general labeled lacking personal virtue had his career destroyed. Subject accepts the decree. Xiao Zhen's voice was utterly hoarse, as if instantly drained of spirit. Xiao Huai was completely paralyzed. He knelt there like a soulless stone statue until Steward Wang pressed the cold edict scroll into his hands, the frigid touch finally shocking him awake. Stripped of rank, these two words were twin knives thrust deep into his heart, stirring flesh and blood to chaos. He remembered his youth training in military camps, recalled the near-death experiences earning distinguished service, remembered the bold promises made before his father, to surpass ancestors and become a legendary general. Now all this glory and dream had been reduced to bubbles because of his ridiculous loyalty. After Steward Wang departed, the ancestral hall fell into death. Like silence long after, old General Xiao Zhen finally spoke slowly, his voice betraying no emotion yet carrying bone, chilling cold. The edict, you heard everything clearly. Yes, father. Xiao Huai's voice was barely audible. From today, you are no longer the Northern Camp's deputy commander, merely an idle civilian at home. Xiao Zhen turned away, no longer looking at him. Do you understand what this means? Xiao Huai didn't answer, only smashed his head heavily against the stone floor with dull impact. He understood perfectly. This meant all his efforts were wasted. He'd become a court and military laughingstock. The Xiao family's century-old reputation was stained with indelible shame because of him. Xiao Zhen watched that huddled figure, the last hope in his eyes finally completely extinguished. Look after yourself. Leaving these words, the old general dragged his heavy, stumbling steps out of the ancestral hall. That retreating figure was desolate, lonely, revealing a hero's twilight tragedy. The vast ancestral hall held only Xiao Huai alone. He knelt before ancestral tablets, clutching that cold edict with white knuckles. His mind uncontrollably flashed through scenes like a spinning lantern. Shen Shuyan in wedding dress, quietly standing abandoned in the ceremony hall. Her simple dress at the treasure appreciation, calmly announcing the donation of all proceeds. Palace edicts arriving, her enfafofment as lady bringing unlimited glory and universal respect. And himself, to save one woman, he'd abandoned easily obtained happy marriage. To satisfy one woman's desires, he'd pushed himself toward irredeemable destruction. He thought he preserved responsibility and true love for Liu Yunwei, yet it was the world's most stupid, ridiculous obsession. He had lost devastatingly, completely. He slowly raised his head toward the gray sky outside the ancestral hall, tears of mixed regret flowing for the first time. At this moment, the tutor's mansion's steward's delivered message echoed in his ears. Words that seemed merely harsh then, but now thundered like awakening. Want to marry my daughter in your next life, perhaps. Those weren't merely angry words, but a verdict that had already seen through his ending. That Lady Anhe enfafment edict brought far more than empty titles. It arrived with a complete set of imperial regalia and privileges, crashing into my life with tremendous weight. 3 days post-edict, the palace clothing department's eunuchs arrived in procession, bringing the ladies exclusive robes and seal. Most striking was a fine mutton, fat white jade personal seal, warm to touch, its base carved with vermilion. Anhe characters radiating unquestionable authority. My fingertips traced the blue-green ceremonial robe, its silk surface water smooth, intricate cloud and auspicious grass patterns catching light with flowing gleams. This garment differed from wedding dress complexity, yet carried indescribable weight. It owed nothing to husband's authority or father-brother dependency. This was imperial recognition of me, Shen Shuyan. Personally, my self-earned credentials in this hierarchical world. Father stood nearby, hands clasped behind him, gaze resting on the ceremonial dress, eyes showing satisfaction and barely detectable gravity. He understood this was my life, gambling victory, my earned protective armor. Lady is not high rank, but having estate and title means half-stepping into imperial genealogy. Father's voice was steady and powerful, carrying warning undertones. Henceforth, when you appear publicly, you represent not only the tutor's mansion's Miss Shen, much less any abandoned woman from the general's mansion, but an imperial-sanctioned noblewoman representing royal dignity. Every word and deed occurs under public scrutiny, extreme caution required. Daughter understands. I gripped the cool jade seal tightly, feeling profound clarity. I knew this wasn't merely flower, viewing and tea sipping entertainment, but a smokeless trial. I would meet all manner of people there, genuine admirers alongside jealousy, suspicion, and testing. Perhaps even forces connected to the general's mansion, wanting to champion Liu Yunwei. But I felt no fear. The game had opened. I was no longer a manipulated, abandoned piece. Now I held the pieces. 3 days hence, Kuning Palace. I was curious what scenery awaited in those high walls and deep courtyards. 3 days later, Kuning Palace. I rode in a palace, granted blue curtain carriage bearing Lady Anhe insignia, slowly entering the Forbidden City. Vermilion palace walls soared high, golden glazed tiles gleamed in autumn sunlight. Throughout the journey, encountered palace servants and eunuchs, all bowed respectfully, withdrawing to both sides. This was power's most direct manifestation, silent yet more forceful than words. Today I wore the blue-green lady's ceremonial dress, hair arranged with an East Pearl phoenix, head pin light cosmetics applied, neither overly ostentatious nor insufficient for lady rank. I knew today I entered an entirely new battlefield where everyone possessed refined, scrutinizing eyes, examining this overnight famous newcomer. The Chrysanthemum Appreciation Banquet occupied Kuning Palace's western garden, the Empress's favorite landscape. Rare stones stood ruggedly, streams babbled gently, thousands of chrysanthemum varieties competed in splendid brocade. Upon arrival, silhouettes already moved gracefully. The capital's most prominent ladies had nearly all assembled. My appearance was like water dropping into hot oil, instantly creating subtle tension in the previously lively atmosphere. All gazes, obvious or hidden, focused upon me, curious, appraising, envious, naturally, including jealousy and hostility. I looked neither left nor right, following the guiding palace maid at measured pace toward my seat. My position was arranged quite forward, ranking only behind several royal wives and first-rank officials' wives, even above several marquise consorts. This was undoubtedly the Empress's deliberate elevation, tremendous honor that also placed me at the conspicuous eye of the storm. Isn't this Lady Anhe? Such magnificent glory. A somewhat acid voice sounded behind me. Sister is truly blessed. Merely being rejected once, she immediately received His Majesty's infaufment, becoming our great Yang dynasty's first legendary figure. Such fortune others couldn't beg for. I paused and turned. Speaking was Minister of War Sunday's eldest daughter, Sunday Wanner. Her father belonged to the military faction, alongside Xiao Zhen, maintaining close relations. Today she clearly came with hostile intent. Several familiar noble ladies surrounded her, covering mouths with handkerchiefs in theatrical anticipation. Former me would have reddened with rage at such barbed humiliation, uncertain how to respond, but now my heart was tempered steel, hard. I didn't anger, but smiled slightly at her, expression peaceful yet distant. Miss Sunday jokes. Shuyan's trivial reputation hardly merits glory. It is merely His Majesty's benevolence, sympathizing with subjects, unable to bear his own daughter's grievance, granting this dignity. I deliberately emphasized his own daughter, clarifying my current status exceeded mere subject. Then I shifted tone, voice carrying compassionate notes. As for fortune, Shuyan dares not accept such praise. Given choice, I'd rather forgo this lady title to restore those northern border warriors' lives. Whenever remembering Mercy Hall's orphan children's hopeful eyes, Shuyan feels my shoulder burden weighs far more than this lady's ceremonial dress. My words were flawlessly delivered, both invoking the emperor and directing conversation toward righteousness and supporting loyal families. This instantly made Sunday Wanner's petty women's quarrels appear utterly beneath notice. Indeed, Sunday Wanner's expression cycled between green and white. She hadn't expected such response, momentarily speechless. Surrounding ladies originally expecting entertainment now viewed me with changed eyes, moving from simple gossip to examination and admiration. Just as atmosphere grew awkward, a high-pitched announcement broke the tension. Her Majesty, the Empress approaches. Everyone rose immediately, kneeling uniformly. I knelt with the crowd, peripheral vision catching bright yellow phoenix robe hem-stopping before me. A well-maintained hand wearing elaborate nail guards gently lifted me up. "You are Lady Anhe?" The Empress's warm voice sounded overhead, carrying slight amusement. "Rise, this palace has long wished to meet you, this benevolent, extraordinary woman. Seeing you today confirms your exceptional bearing." Under the entire garden's noble lady's gaze, the Empress publicly granted me unique favor. I knew this Hongmen banquet was just beginning. The Empress's favor was supreme honor and sharpest blade. It lifted me high while making me everyone's target. Amid countless complex gazes, the Empress personally seated me beside her, a position more honored than several senior royal wives. Sunday Wanner sat not far away, her pretty face flushed red, nearly shredding the handkerchief in her hands. Her look toward me mixed resentment with fear. The banquet commenced with song, dance, and harmonious atmosphere. The Empress didn't overly focus on me, conversing naturally with everyone. Yet all understood today's gathering revolved around me, the newly risen Lady Anhe. After 3 wine rounds, the Empress suddenly set down her jade chopsticks, smiling at me. "Anhe, this palace heard you've organized Mercy Hall excellently, not only ensuring orphans and widows have food and clothing, but hiring teachers for children's education. Is this true?" I immediately rose, respectfully responding. "Your Majesty, this is true. Your subject believes teaching methods surpasses giving fish. Silver eventually depletes, but mastering skills and understanding sage texts enables true livelihood and national service." Well said, the Empress applauded in praise, teaching methods. This palace first heard such expression, truly insightful. You possess not only benevolent heart, but far-sighted wisdom. Her words barely ended when Sunday Wanner seized opportunity to stand, affecting innocence. "Lady is truly impressive. Only Mercy Hall's 300 people require substantial daily expenses. Lady donating money, hiring teachers, repairing buildings. Where does this silver originate? Mustn't seek fame while actually emptying the Grand Tutor's lifetime savings." Her seemingly concerned question was actually malicious, questioning my funding sources, implying reckless action, possibly misusing official funds. I showed no panic, calmly withdrawing a ledger from my sleeve and presenting it with both hands. "Miss Sunday's concern is appreciated. This records every fund source and expenditure for Mercy Hall. The treasure appreciation's 9,300 taels, my personal addition of 10,000 from remaining dowry sales, plus recent proceeds from liquidating several idle estates and shops. All thoroughly documented. These accounts are publicly posted monthly outside Mercy Hall for oversight. Please your majesty and all ladies, examine them. My thorough preparation stunned everyone. The Empress's attendant accepted the ledger, briefly reviewing it before whispering in Her Majesty's ear. The Empress's smile deepened with satisfaction as she nodded approvingly. Excellent, measured actions, clear accounting. You are no impulsive actor, but truly devoted to this cause. Anhe, you honor His Majesty's recognition. Sunday Wanner's scheme backfired spectacularly, leaving her embarrassed and forced to sit down. After this minor incident, none dared provoke me further. The banquet atmosphere returned to harmony. Just when I thought today would pass peacefully, an elderly lady across from me raised her cup toward me. She was Prince Rui's consort, the late emperor's sister-in-law, of extremely high seniority and typically low profile, rarely involved in such disputes. Lady Anhe, Princess Rui's voice was gentle, yet deliberate. This old woman presumes to ask, I heard the general's mansion troubles originated with a girl named Liu Yunwei. My heart tensed, uncertain why she suddenly mentioned this person. But I respectfully answered, Your Highness, that is correct. Princess Rui's clouded eyes flashed with reminiscence as she spoke slowly. Liu Yunwei, this name reminds me of old matters. Over 10 years ago, Jiangnan Salt Commissioner Liu Chengji was executed with his entire family for massive embezzlement. Only one young daughter's whereabouts unknown. This old woman recalls that child's name seemed also to be Yunwei. Her words weren't loud yet, struck like lightning, instantly illuminating my mind's fog. Liu Chengji, Jiangnan Salt Commission. Father's study contained files on this old case. It was an unsolved mystery. Liu Chengji's allegedly embezzled vast tax silver ultimately vanished without trace, while he himself mysteriously died in prison, taking secrets to his grave. If the general's mansion's Liu Yunwei was indeed the Salt Commissioner's daughter, could her approach to Xiao Huai truly stem from simple infatuation, or did this conceal a decade-plus revenge plot? My hand holding the teacup trembled imperceptibly. I realized I might have inadvertently touched an enormous, dangerous web returning from Kunning Palace to the tutor's mansion. Evening approached with sunset painting, magnificent orange, red skies. Yet I felt no appreciation for beauty. Princess Rui's words rippled through my heart like stones cast in deep pools. I didn't return to my quarters, but went directly to Father's study. As expected, he sat behind his desk holding hot tea, apparently awaiting my return. You are back, seeing me, he smiled slightly. How went palace affairs today? Smoothly. And not smoothly. I recounted everything from palace events, especially my conversation with Princess Rui about Jiangnan Salt Commissioner Liu Chengji. When I mentioned this name, I clearly saw Father's teacup pause mid-lift, liquid splashing onto his crimson official robes. His expression immediately grew gravely serious. Liu Chengji, he set down his cup, slowly exhaling the name, eyes becoming profound and sharp. I remember this case. 15 years past now. It shocked court and kingdom, involving many. Liu Chengji was charged with embezzling exactly 3 million taels of salt tax. Evidence seemed conclusive, yet he mysteriously died during transport to the capital. Those 3 million taels vanished forever, becoming an unsolved case. Father rose and approached the bookshelf, retrieving a locked black iron box from the highest hidden compartment. Using a key, he opened it and withdrew a yellowed ancient case file. This is a deputy copy secretly preserved by the investigating censor. Father spread the file before me. Official records show Liu Chengji as utterly corrupt, committing suicide from shame. But this copy records Liu Chengji repeatedly protesting innocence, claiming frame-up, with the real mastermind being someone else. Unfortunately, before revealing that person's identity, he died mysteriously. My heart sank with each page turned. Father, you mean... If the general's mansion's Lu Yunwei is truly Lu Chengji's daughter, Father's voice was ice. Cold, her calculated approach to Xiao Huai could never be romantic sentiment. Someone backs her, or rather, everything she has done serves to vindicate her father and identify the real culprit who destroyed the Liu family. A terrible possibility formed in my mind, and the Xiao family controls military power as the capital's martial leaders. Becoming the general's mansion's mistress equals controlling force capable of shaking court dynamics. This power could serve revenge or other purposes. Father and I exchanged glances, both seeing deep wariness in the other's eyes. The matter's nature had completely changed. This was no longer simple broken engagement drama or household jealousy theatrics. This might involve court faction struggles, old unsolved cases, and massive wealth. Xiao Huai was merely a utilized, utterly stupid chess piece in this grand game. Shuyan, Father's expression was unprecedentedly serious. This must be immediately clarified. We cannot remain passive. Daughter understands. My thoughts raced rapidly. We must divide into two approaches. First, immediately dispatch reliable agents to Jiangnan to verify Lu Yunwei's true identity, seeking Lu family survivors to determine if she is truly Lu Chengji's daughter. Second, re-examine this salt tax embezzlement case. All officials involved then, plus those gaining most after the Liu family's downfall, could be the true mastermind. Correct. Father nodded approvingly. I have channels for Jiangnan investigation. In the capital, Liu Yunwei's current confinement in the general's mansion's woodshed presents opportunity. We must find ways to extract clues from her. I gazed at the gradually darkening night outside, my heart ice cold. Originally, I only wanted Xiao Huai and Liu Yunwei to pay deserved prices, suffer disgrace. But now I suddenly had a more important goal. If I could expose this old unsolved case and drag out the real corrupt official and mastermind, it wouldn't just serve myself but earn unprecedented merit for the Shen family. This achievement would far surpass the empty Lady Anhe title in substance and security. At that moment, I felt my chest's remaining traces of romantic grievance completely dissipate. Replacing them was unprecedented control. Seeking calm and desire, this chess game was becoming increasingly interesting. The general's mansion's woodshed was dark and damp, air thick with rotting wood and mold. A weak beam of light squeezed through wall cracks, illuminating dancing dust motes. Lu Yunwei huddled in the corner on dry straw, her once beautiful dress now filthy, hair disheveled, face haggard. Her eyes no longer held former pitiful charm, only cornered beast madness and venom. She'd been confined here 3 days without water. Hunger and despair gnawed at her sanity, and were like twin serpents. She couldn't understand how everything had gone so wrong. She'd clearly captured Xiao Huai's heart, was just one step from becoming the general's mansion's mistress. So why could Shen Shuyan, that wretch, repeatedly cast her into hell? Creak, the heavy wooden door opened, harsh light making her squint instinctively. A tall, familiar silhouette approached against the brightness. It was Xiao Huai. He wore faded old clothes, face paler than hers, eyes sunken, jaw sprouting blue stubble. Overnight he'd been drained of all vitality. No longer the spirited general, he was a broken prisoner. Lu Yunwei's heart instantly sparked with hope. She struggled to rise, throwing herself at his feet, desperately clutching his robe hem, using her most pitiful voice. "Huai, brother, you finally came. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. It is Auntie. She locked me here, won't feed me, wants to starve me to death. Why, brother, quickly take me away." Xiao Huai didn't move, only lowered his gaze with unfamiliar icy strangeness, looking down at her like viewing a clown. Take you away. He slowly spoke, voice sand, rough like grinding stones. Where to continue deceiving the next fool like me? Liu Yunwei's crying paused, looking up incredulously. Why, brother, you? What are you saying? I ask you. Xiao Huai knelt to her level, meeting her gaze with eyes once filled with tenderness, now holding only endless cold and disgust. 15 years ago, Jiangnan Salt Commissioner Lu Chengji, what relation to you? This name exploded like thunder in Liu Yunwei's ears. Blood drained completely from her face, body trembling uncontrollably, all pretense shattered in this moment. I don't know, what are you talking about? She denied incoherently, eyes darting frantically. Don't know. Xiao Huai laughed coldly, the sound full of self-mockery and sorrow. Even now you are still acting, Liu Yunwei. No, perhaps I should call you Miss Liu. I truly admire you, admire your perfect performance these dozen years. I, Xiao Huai, was your sharpest blade. Most obedient dog, wasn't I? He suddenly gripped her wrist with bone, crushing force. You approached me, pleased me, obeyed my every wish, flattered my mother. Everything was just to use me, exploit the general's mansion's power to vindicate your father, right? Liu Yunwei was terrified by his appearance, utterly desperate. She knew everything was over. Since her disguise was torn away, she stopped pretending. Her eyes lost all remaining softness, replaced by bone, deep hatred. Yes, you are all right, she shrieked, voice piercing like night owls. Lu Chengji is my father. He wasn't corrupt. He was framed by villains. Our Liu family, over 100 lives destroyed overnight. I was only 7, watching my mother die under raid soldiers' blades protecting me. I hid in a rice jar to barely escape, she cried, laughed, completely mad. I swore to vindicate my father, make those who killed our family pay in blood. Alone, powerless, what could I do you, Xiao Huai, our general, His Majesty's favorite? Who else but you? You think I wanted to smile at you. You think I wanted to serve your vicious mother, seeing you people disgusted me. She stared at Xiao Huai malevolently. I only used you as a stepping stone to climb higher, access greater power, find my enemies. Xiao Huai's heart was pierced by her malicious yet truthful words. What he'd thought pure love, his precious white moonlight, was entirely calculated deception and exploitation. He released her hand, staggering backward, leaning against the cold wall, emitting beast like painful whimpers. Those 3 million taels of salt tax, that missing corrupt wealth, where is it? He asked with his last strength. Liu Yunwei's eyes flashed cunning madness. Want to know? Possible. Save me, help me find my enemies, and I'll tell you that money's location, that is nation, rivaling wealth, enough for your comeback even. Before finishing, Xiao Huai suddenly laughed. That laughter was more tragic than weeping. Comeback. Ha 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 ha. Tears flowed as he laughed. My life's military glory, honourable conduct, yet because of you I've fallen, this low family destroyed, reputation ruined, universal mockery. What right do I have to discuss comeback? He slowly straightened, looking at this woman he once loved to his bones but now despised utterly. Liu Yunwei, you are wrong. I won't save you, but I'll help you find your enemies. His voice was terrifyingly calm, because I want him to know his carefully orchestrated conspiracy was ultimately buried by you. His personally cultivated chess piece. I want you all to destroy each other, go to hell together, finished. He turned decisively away from this woodshed that had made his life a joke. The door slammed shut behind him. sealing Lu Yunwei's final hope in endless darkness. Leaving the woodshed, Xiao Huai didn't return to his quarters, but did something unexpected. He changed into common cloth clothing and walked alone from the general's mansion, heading straight to the tutor's mansion. He didn't kneel or seek audience. He simply handed a letter and small oil-wrapped item to Shen family guards, then turned silently away. His figure in the capital's bleak autumn wind appeared infinitely lonely and desolate. That letter soon reached my father Shen Jing's desk. I was helping organize intelligence from Jiangnan. The handwriting was messy and chaotic, reeking of despair. Xiao Huai detailed his conversation with Lu Yunwei and her personal confession of identity and motives. He offered no self-defense, only writing at the end. Criminal subject Xiao Huai, deserving 10,000 deaths, only wish this letter aids Grand Tutor in uncovering truth, eliminating national threats. If this broken body can earn Shuyan's smile, this criminal dies content. The oil-wrapped package contained a small ivory-carved seal, bearing a Lu character, Lu Yunwei's private seal and identity proof. Simultaneously, Father's Jiangnan agents sent decisive intelligence. They'd found a former Liu mansion servant who confirmed Liu Yui's appearance matched her mother's youth by 7-8 parts. More importantly, investigators discovered that after Lu Chengji's case, Jiangnan officialdom underwent massive purges, with the greatest beneficiary and fastest promoted being the then Jiangning prefect, current Minister of War. Miss Sunday Father examined the intelligence, eyes flashing coldly. Then merely a lowly 7th rank prefect, now holding supreme position, rivaling me in court. I always felt this man's rise was irregular, foundation unstable, never imagining his foundation was built on 3 million tales of people's blood and over 100 lives. All clues converged at this moment, forming a dragnet pointing to the Minister of War. Lu Yunwei was merely a chess piece placed in the capital. He might have been the Liu family's old acquaintance who found this orphan after their destruction, raised her while instilling revenge thoughts. He had her approach Xiao Huai to disrupt the general's and tutor's mansion's alliance, incite civil, military conflict, allowing him to profit as the fisherman. He calculated everything except human hearts. He never expected Shen Shuyan wouldn't be a pushover, much less that his carefully cultivated peace, Lu Yunwei, would confess all secrets when cornered. Father, we now have Lu Yunwei's confession, her private seal plus Jiangnan investigation results, enough to prove everything to His Majesty. I looked at Father with slight excitement. No, insufficient. Father shook his head, more composed than ever. These are circumstantial evidence. Having operated in court for years with numerous allies, he could completely deny these, claiming we fabricated evidence to attack political enemies. To deliver fatal blow, we need irrefutable iron proof. Iron proof. The location of those 3 million taels of salt tax. Father's gaze fell on that letter Lu Yunwei had told Xiao Huai. She knew the money's whereabouts. Impossible to store such huge sums in official treasury or personal mansion, too easily exposed. My mind raced. He must have hidden it somewhere unthinkable or converted it to another form. Converted to land shops, antiques, jewels. Father's eyes grew brighter. Shuyan, remember your treasure appreciation gathering? His wife also attended, didn't she? I immediately nodded. Yes, she paid high prices for a former dynasty 100 birds, paying homage as painting. Investigate, Father immediately ordered. Check the Minister of War's mansion for all major recent purchases, especially transactions through underground money houses and black markets. He dares not deposit silver directly, so he must have used such methods to launder the money. If we find his transaction ledgers with black market merchants, That is ironclad proof of corruption. A larger-scale secret investigation rapidly deployed. The Shen family's years, built intelligence network displayed its greatest power at this moment. 3 days later, in the capital's largest underground antique market, Ghost Market, our people successfully found a hidden ledger recording years of secret transactions with the Minister of War's mansion from a silenced merchant's home. The ledger clearly recorded every transaction's amount, items, and timing, totaling nearly the exact sum of the vanished salt tax. Ironclad evidence. The next day before dawn, my father Shen Jing donned his first-rank official robes, carrying that ledger determining countless fates, and was first among hundreds of officials entering the palace. A storm capable of overturning court dynamics was about to arrive. That day's morning court was destined for historical records. In the Golden Hall's solemn majesty, officials lined both sides, while the emperor sat high on the dragon throne, just as all court proceedings seemed ready to begin routinely. My father Shen Jing stepped forward with memorial in hand, voice resonating like bronze bells. Subject Grand Tutor Shen Jing has matters to report. I impeach the Minister of War for deceiving the sovereign, corruption, and law-breaking, forming factions for personal gain. Crimes unpardonable. These earth-shattering 16 words instantly plunged the Golden Hall into deathly silence. All gazes focused on father and the man whose face immediately turned deathly pale. Shen Jing, you spread lies. He reacted first, pointing at father in fury. We disagree politically, so you use such despicable methods to frame me. What are your intentions? Frame. Father laughed coldly, raising the memorial and secret ledger high. Minister Sunday, dare you explain before His Majesty where your enormous wealth these past years originated? Dare you explain this ledger's 3 million tail transactions between you and the capital's black markets? 3 million taels. This number struck everyone like lightning. Exactly the sum from the Jiangnan salt tax embezzlement case 15 years prior. His body shook violently, cold sweat instantly soaking his official robes. He knew everything was finished. The emperor's expression had darkened ominously. He slammed the dragon throne's armrest, roaring, guards, strip the Minister of War's hat and robes, imprison him for interrogation. Arrest all related parties for thorough investigation. I want to see how many more parasites hide in my court. Following the emperor's order, forbidden palace guards flooded in like wolves and tigers. Still trying to argue, he was firmly restrained and dragged away in chaos and exclamations. A massive power structure entrenched in court for over a decade crumbled under ironclad evidence. The following month saw the entire capital shrouded in fearful tension. Led by Father Shen Jing with the Court of Judicial Review, Ministry of Justice, and Censorate jointly investigating. Following this lead revealed shocking discoveries. Dozens of court officials were implicated and imprisoned, confiscated family wealth filling national treasury storerooms. The Jiangnan salt tax embezzlement case finally came to light. Liu Chengji's injustice was cleared, confiscated Liu family property fully restored, though sadly only orphan Liu Yuanwei remained of the once great Liu clan. After case resolution, the emperor privately summoned me to the imperial study. Anhe, without your careful observation, detecting this enormous conspiracy from household matters, our dynasty would have suffered unknown parasitic damage. You and the Grand Tutor have earned unprecedented merit for the nation. Tell me, what reward do you desire? I knelt, responding neither servile nor arrogant. Serving your majesty, eliminating threats for the people, is subject's duty. I dare not seek reward. Subject has only one request. Oh, speak. Subject humbly requests your majesty officially incorporate Mercy Hall into court administration. Establish a mercy foundation with annual national treasury allocation under subjects' full management, ensuring every penny serves its purpose, allowing all families of fallen soldiers proper care for elderly and education for young, removing all worries. The emperor looked at me deeply, eyes full of approval and appreciation. He laughed heartily. Excellent, well said, Shen Shuyan. Your vision and magnanimity surpass many court officials pursuing mere fame. Granted, not only granted, but I'll further elevate your rank to Princess Anhe with 2,000 household estates. This mercy hall shall be your fief, your foundation. From that moment, I, Shen Shuyan, became Great Yang Dynasty's first woman to earn princess rank through merit alone. My name no longer needed any man's support. It was honor itself. Those who once stirred waves in my life all met their final fates. The minister and his faction were sentenced to complete family execution, paying the heaviest price for their crimes. Liu Yunwei, for revealing the conspiracy's merit, was spared death but deemed morally corrupt, sentenced to lifelong confinement in Jing'an Temple outside the capital, accompanied by Buddhist lamps and prayers, repenting for her Liu family's 100 dead and her own actions for the remainder of her days. As for Xiao Huai, after case resolution, he came alone to the tutor's mansion gates, kowtowing 3 times toward my chamber windows. Afterward, he submitted a confession to His Majesty, requesting to forfeit all titles and guard imperial tombs until death. The emperor approved that once brilliant, promising young general ultimately chose the loneliest path to end his absurd, tragic life. Hearing of his capital departure, old General Xiao Zhen aged overnight, voluntarily surrendering military seals and retiring into seclusion. The once mighty general's mansion thus completely declined. It was a sunny afternoon. I stood in Mercy Hall's renovated courtyard, watching children chase and play in sunlight, faces bright with carefree smiles. Mama Chin approached, smiling, "Princess, look how wonderful these days are." I gazed at the distant blue sky, feeling warm sunshine, my heart peaceful and content. Yes, these days were truly wonderful. I finally understood a woman's value never lay in marrying well, but in finding her position and living her own brilliance. That abandoned wedding was once my life's greatest humiliation. Yet looking back, it became the springboard liberating me from old shackles, launching me toward broader, freer skies. Xiao Huai, Liu Yunwei, all were passing clouds. And I, Shen Shuyan, my life was just beginning. And that, dear listeners, is where our tale ends for today. Xiao Huai fancied himself a man of honor, when really he was just protecting his pride. Liu Yunwei claimed to seek justice, when what she truly craved was power. But Shen Shuyan, she grasped the essential truth from the very beginning: better to captain your own ship than trust another with the wheel. And that, dear listeners, is where our tale ends for today. Xiao Huai fancied himself a man of honor, when really he was just protecting his pride. Liu Yunwei claimed to seek justice, when what she truly craved was power. But Shen Shuyan, she grasped the essential truth from the very beginning: better to captain your own ship than trust another with the wheel.